Hello, hello. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. I am just making updates while all of the streams sync up. Let's see if we're live on Facebook. One moment. Lots of exciting things. We are live on Facebook. Lots of exciting things going on, and including a big announcement about our workshop. So just making sure we are good here. Okay. So it's almost been 2 years since I left my corporate job and started our agency. And it's almost my birthday. It all kind of coincides. I left my corporate life, been there for over a decade, the day after my birthday 2 years ago, and started down the quest of entrepreneurship. And, it has been a wild, exciting ride. I've met some incredible, amazing people. And so I wanted to briefly chat about what's coming up, but I also wanted to dive into a discussion about why invoicing issues cause profit turbulence and why it's so important. So, quick back history on who we are and what we do. I'm Tiffany-Ann. Our agency is based on the west coast of Canada. We are live in all sorts of different places. So if you are seeing this, pop on, say hello in the chat. We use Restream to be live in multiple places. So let us know where you're seeing this video. And, chatting about this invoicing issue. So one of the services we offer, we do a huge amount of bookkeeping. And one of the pieces that we run into over and over and over again, so much that we did this workshop, is invoicing issues. Most people assume their invoicing is correct, and therefore it's not typically the part that is included in a bookkeeping service. Now, we do some invoicing for certain clients, but most people, because invoicing is done on a constant basis, you finish a job, you send the invoice, you finish up. And so unless you have, a fairly intensive bookkeeping process, or you have a fair amount of bookkeeping hours, most business owners just do their own invoicing or have someone on their team that does the invoicing. Just a moment while I stir my beverage. Okay. So, like I was saying, most business owners do their own invoicing, which is totally fine. But it must be done correctly. And that is where we run into some issues. Because while some invoicing is very, very simple, oftentimes we start to add complexities to the invoicing without really taking into account the fact that they are more complex and therefore are creating errors and issues. So for service-based businesses, we have multiple errors we see repeatedly. We do have a guide, the 10 top QuickBooks or bookkeeping in general errors that we see, and how to fix them. So if you're interested in that guide, drop in the comments. I can send you it over. It's a free guide. Walks you through our 10 most common issues and how to avoid them. But when we're talking about invoicing specifically, one of the things that causes the most profit turbulence is not recording deposits correctly. This is one we see often, and it really ties into people also editing invoices. So we're going to walk through a little bit of a scenario. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. I'm happy to go over them because they do apply to different businesses in different ways. But most businesses, if you are going to be providing a service, a lot of times you will do a deposit up front in some kind of capacity. So customer says, yes, I'd like to go ahead, and you say, perfect, I will send you over the deposit invoice. We will get that paid and we will move ahead. So what happens when that deposit is in March? And now you need to order materials, perhaps, or you don't schedule in real time. It's going to be a couple of weeks, maybe next month, etc. And so now you've gone into the following month. So what happens when this is recorded incorrectly is now back in March, when you've recorded that deposit, when it is recorded as a sale, March now has this extra sale, but it has no costs. There's no expenses that go with that because you didn't actually deliver the service then. So say, let's for this little scenario here, $500 deposit. And so now you've added your $500 deposit to your sales. Now your sales in March are overstated by $500. So you review your financial statement in March. You get you're reviewing your profit and loss statement at the end of the month, and you're like, "Ooh, March looks great. Look at that. Numbers are really coming up. We're like more profitable. Things are looking good. Everything is in line." And so you think, "Okay, here we are. We're doing good." Now you deliver that service, and it is April, May, and you're going to go send that invoice. Here's the two errors we see on this all the time. Number one, sometimes people go back to that original invoice from March and they add to it. But the date on that invoice is still March. And so now all the sales are being added to March. So even though March is done and closed and reviewed and whatever, now we're re-adding things to March because that invoice date is March. So that's error number one we see, and that really wreaks havoc on the profit because now you have more and more. You're still paying all your expenses in April and May, but now you've added the sale for the entire job back into March. We see this often. And so number one, when the deposit invoice is done and paid and sent and whatever, it's done. You need to send a new invoice and it needs to be dated appropriately. So that's error number one. We cannot go back and edit that original invoice. And sometimes people will say, "Hey, but I want my customer to see that I have taken that off, that they know that I have applied that $500. And so there is a way to do this that makes sure everything is good, that your customer understands what's going on, you understand what's going on, that your records are accurate. And so we're going to go over that in our invoicing workshop that's coming up. If you're interested in learning this, it's up in this corner as a QR code. It's the workshop sign up. So you can go there and we're going to go through this, including standard operating procedures, how to get this done, how to train your team to do it, all of that. So that's error number one. We don't want to go back to that original invoice, even if it's something that has multiple payments. We had this, I was having a conversation recently with a photographer and she does wedding packages. And so she said, well, but they make their initial payment and then a couple months later they do another payment and a couple months later they do another payment. And I want them to know that we have all of this information in our records, that we have all of these payments. So we're going to go over exactly how to show that because, customer experience is important. The customers need to know that we have this record, but we can't be disrupting our financial statements and causing these profit turbulence issues. So the other issue that we see then is, well, we've got the sale, the deposit recorded in March. Now we go on to finish the job in April, May, etc. And so even though we do the new invoice, which is better than the first error, we still are seeing only part of the sale. So if you are doing 50% deposit, even 40% deposit, and 40% of the sale is in a month with no expenses, you can see how right away this causes problems. So when we look at the profit and loss statement. So, we just wrapped up Q1, and part of our bookkeeping service for our agencies at the end of Q1, we're actually pulling that comparison report and we're saying, okay, month one, month two, month three of the year, where are things looking? Okay, so, in each of these months, our average expenses for cost of goods sold, so direct labor, direct materials, these types of things, our average is here, maybe 30, 40%, obviously 100% dependent on the business. But what we don't want to see is that January is 40, February is 30, March is 45. We don't want to be seeing these big swings. There's something wrong. If you were delivering the same service with the same margins, typically, small fluctuations are fine. But if you're delivering the same service with the same type of materials at the same, markups, the same team, you shouldn't have major swings unless something has gone wrong. or something has been missed. And so this is where we dig into what are we seeing? What is the trends? What is the pattern? It all ties into our data-driven method. I'm sure if you have been following for a while, you've seen me talk about this. We talk about plotting what is normal for your business. I can't say it must be 30% across the board. I can say on average in this industry, it's around X, but we have to make sure that it's in line with your business. So we want to know, what are the trends, what's going on? And so when we have these major swings of profit, January super profitable, March not profitable, February, May super profitable. Typically, it means we have something recorded in the wrong month. And so that's what we call profit turbulence. Things are not predictable. You want repeatable, predictable profit. You want to know that if you work, your team X number of billable hours, it's going to be around this amount of gross margin. You've got your overhead costs, and you've got this predictable net profit. And so this all ties in. But the number one bookkeeping issue that causes profit turbulence is invoicing incorrectly. We see it over and over again. We see it in all these different industries. And most commonly, invoicing is the last thing that you would outsource. Most people don't outsource their invoicing until they have an in-house team. Now, we do offer invoicing bookkeeping services because this is an issue for so many business owners. And so we do have some packages that can provide support on an as-needed basis. You basically have someone that can do that invoicing for you. So we do offer that service, or we do also offer, of course, the workshop, which is up in the corner. It is a 2-hour live workshop. We're going to go through, it includes the recordings, it includes the documentation, the standard operating procedures on how to do this correctly. So whether you are a audio learner and want to listen to the replays, whether you want to, turn in live, whether you want to have the actual documentation to refer back to add to your business standard operating procedures, this workshop is going to offer many different options for that. But what it's absolutely going to do if you attend live is going to allow you to ask the questions and say, okay, in my business, this is the way that the workflow works. How would I invoice that correctly? And we're going to go through and we're going to make sure that we solve profit turbulence. We're going to solve these invoicing issues, and we are going to get it so that you have repeatable, predictable profits. So any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. The link for the invoicing workshop I will drop in the comments of each of these streams, but there is a QR code here. If you scan it, it will take you right to the workshop sign up page, and it is on May 5th. So register now. And even if you can't attend live, you will still get the recording. That's all for today, guys. Happy Tuesday and have a wonderful